All right, I think the witching hour is here to begin. Thank you all for being with us. I'd like to call this November 9th, 2021 meeting of the City Council of Charleston to order. Madam Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Councilmember Shealy.
Here.
Councilmember Saccharin.
Here.
Councilmember Mitchell. Councilmember Brady.
Present.
Councilmember Gregory. Councilmember Waring. Councilmember Seekings.
Here.
Councilmember Shade. Councilmember Griffin. Councilmember Appel. Councilmember Jackson. Mayor Tecklenburg.
Here. And if you would like to join us, Councilmember Griffin is going to lead us with an invocation and pledge of allegiance.
Mr. Mayor, tonight I'm going to be giving a prayer in response to Veterans Day, but before that, I'd like to honor all of our veterans who are in attendance. So if you are a veteran in attendance, please raise your hand so you can be recognized. Dear Lord, today and this week we honor our veterans, worthy men and women who gave their best when they were called upon to serve and protect our country. We pray that you will bless them for their unselfish service and the continual struggle to preserve our freedoms, our safety, and our country's heritage for all of us. Bless them abundantly for their hardships they faced, for the sacrifices they made, for their many different contributions to America's victories over tyranny and oppression. We respect them, we thank them, we honor them, we are proud of them. We pray that you will watch over these special people and bless them with peace and happiness. Amen.
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 Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, council member, and thank you, everyone. First up, we have a proclamation recognizing an amazing citizen of our city, and that's one Bill Sharp. Joining him this evening, I believe, is his wife, Catherine, and his son, William. Where's William? There you are, William. Good to see you. And Vera is like a member of the family and helps William along, and Harper, the Sharp's daughter, is with us as well. So recently, you may have noted that Bill isn't on the 6 o'clock newscast anymore like he normally would be, because he's retired. And I went out to the station to give this proclamation on the occasion of his retirement, but I wanted to share it with the public and with council. So here goes. Whereas the city of Charleston wishes to recognize Bill Sharp, who is one of our most dedicated citizens, who has not only contributed to Charleston, but to the entire Low Country. During his impressive tenure at WCSC Live 5 News, Bill Sharp has consistently provided trustworthy reporting on what's going on in our community. And over the years, Bill has traveled the world, covering a wide range of stories, but his most significant career-defining moments took place right here in Charleston. His coverage guided this community through major events like Hurricane Hugo, like the Sofa Superstore fire, and the tragedy at Mother Emanuel. Through it all, Bill Sharp remained a steady voice of reassurance for our citizens, and one so many Charlestonians have grown to trust and respect. And that's why I commented personally that Bill Sharp, in my mind, is the Walter Cronkite of the Low Country. He's that trustworthy over his years of service and truthfulness in his reporting. So to continue, whereas in addition to his many outstanding journalistic accomplishments, Bill has long served as an advocate for special needs children and families. In 2018, alongside with his son, William, he testified before state lawmakers in Columbia, urging them to pass a bill enforcing tougher punishments for bullying and always looking out for the rights and needs of those with special needs. Whereas the city of Charleston would like to thank Bill Sharp for his 48 years of service to the community and congratulate him on his successful career as a trailblazing news anchor who has left an indelible mark on the broadcast industry here. Now, therefore, I, John J. Tecklenburg, Mayor of the City of Charleston, on behalf of our citizens and our city council, and in recognition of your service to the Low Country, we proclaim Wednesday, October 27th, was Bill Sharp Day in the city of Charleston. And that's the way it is.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Mayor Tecklenburg, and city council members. This is such a wonderful honor. I will cherish this until Jesus calls me home. It surprised me, Mr. Mayor, and I'm so thankful that some members of my family could be here. And on a personal note, Council Member Appel, I went to school with your daddy a long time ago at Emory University. We were both young back then, and I didn't have this gray hair. And I know he has been having some health issues lately. Please tell him for me he's in my thoughts and prayers. Yes, sir. City Council, Mr. Seekings, Mr. Shade, good to see you too. I've got so many friends here on council. Mr. Waring, good to see you. Mr. Mitchell, thank you all for this wonderful honor. And as I said, I will treasure this for the rest of my days. Thank you.
Thank you, Bill.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, sir. Councilmember Shades.
so Bill, we're going to miss you, but in the words of the late, great Bishop David Thompson, when he retired as the Bishop of Charleston, he would introduce himself as the happily retired Bishop of Charleston. And I think that you will soon find that retirement will suit you, and that I just didn't want this opportunity to pass without saying thank you for your service, because you were a public servant to the community, and you were one of our sons of Charleston. And God bless you. Enjoy yourself. Enjoy your beautiful family, and best of luck to you.
Thank you, Mr. Shade.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, sir. Councilmember Waring.
I got to tell you, I was hoping you wasn't going to be humble and just accept the award. I wanted to hear your voice grace the microphone one more time. I mean, you represented truth. The mayor said it right. You represented truth to this community. And I just hope and pray who steps in your spot we be equally as blessed as the way you have blessed this community all these decades. I know you're not going, so we'll still see you around, but thank you so much for what you did for all of us.
Councilmember Waring, thank you, sir. Thank you so much.
Councilmember Appel.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And Bill, thank you so much for those remarks about my father. And, you may have gray hair, but at least you have hair. I'm trying to hang on to it as long as I can. But I remember, I grew up right around the corner from you on Chadwick, and my little brother and I would be outside shooting hoops, and Bill Sharp from TV would just be riding his bike by the house or walking by. And it was such a surreal experience that the guy that we would see on TV would just be, walking around, and it was just so cool. You were always so friendly, always had a smile on your face. And it's just wonderful that, Charleston's still a small city where everybody knows each other and respects one another. And we have a tremendous amount of respect for you, sir. And you're one of my most famous constituents. So thank you, sir. Take care.
There you go. Councilmember Seekings.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Bill, just very briefly, it's amazing that I've been sitting in this seat for 12 years. And I remember when I first got elected, the first order of business I had was to go on TV and sit next to Bill Sharp. I'll never forget it. It was the first gray hair I got. I was so worried about it. I got to walk in the studio and there he was. And while he was always to the point and succinct, he absolutely made you feel at home. And for me, it's been an honor to be part of the community. And you're one of the reasons why it's so great. So we're going to miss you. don't go too far. We'll be looking out for you and anything we can do. For those of us who've enjoyed the pleasure of your company, sitting next to you and watching you represent this community, all we can say is thank you. Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Anybody else? Thank you. Councilmember Mitchell.
Yeah, Mr. Bill, I would like to say thank you for all what you have done for the city of Charleston and being on the air. Every time I watch the television, I look for Bill Sharp. When he's not there, I say, what's going on? You know, just to hear that voice coming through and the way you tell the news and you give it, you know, and give it to the people, they understand it. And one thing I can say about you always, you look out for everyone. And that's why I looked at it over and over again, and I said, you are blessed for that. And I said, just keep on blessing everyone in the community, and you receive your blessing also. Thank you very much for being here, and thank you for what you did for the community. They appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Councilmember Mitchell, thank you, sir, for those comments.
And that's the way it is.
That's the way it is.
That's a wrap.
You got it. So, council members and those assembled, I can't tell you how honored I am and we are to have with us tonight General Jason Kelly, who's the commanding general of the Army Corps South Atlantic Division of the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. He is here tonight basically to top off the presentations that we have already had in our workshop and other meetings regarding the coastal storm risk management study for the Charleston Peninsula. His job is to oversee the planning, design, and construction of projects that support the military, that protect America's water resources and restores and enhances the environment. And his little area covers about 250,000 square miles, including 8 southeastern states, Puerto Rico, and the U.S. Virgin Islands. General Kelly joined the South Atlantic Division from the Pentagon, where he served as the Director, Office of Corps of Engineers. And that's particularly why I wanted him to come and share with us the process of this whole project after it leaves Charleston and heads up to Washington. He commanded, by the way, the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers Afghanistan District from 2018 to 2019 and the U.S. Corps Office in Norfolk. He has held leadership positions from platoon to brigade, from the top to the bottom, with duty in Asia, in the Middle East, and the United States, including, as I mentioned, he was commander of the 20th Engineer Battalion in Afghanistan. He was deputy commander of the 36th Engineer Brigade during Operation Iraqi Freedom. So his other assignments have included being a part of the Army's advanced civil schooling program. And listen to this, he has duty as an advanced calculus instructor in the Department of Mathematics. So in addition to his leadership, he's really a smart guy. He's from Flint, Michigan originally, but has gotten all kinds of degrees from West Point, a master's degree from Missouri University of Science and Tech, master's degree from Georgia Institute of Technology, a master's degree from the National Defense University, and a master's degree in U.S. Army War College. I don't know how many master's degrees you're allowed to get, General. His awards and decorations include, I'm not going to list them all. I mean, it's 2 paragraphs worth, but the Legion of Merit, the Bronze Star 3 times, the Defense Meritorious Service Medal, the Meritorious Service Medal, 5 awards, and the list goes on. General Kelly, I want to say again how honored we are to have you here. We thank you, sir, for your outstanding service to this country. You honor us by being here. This is a real deal, y'all. General Jason Kelly.
Thank you, Mayor Tecklenburg. I had to tell you, I wish my mom were in attendance tonight. I do. Thank you so much, sir, for such a warm welcome. Members of the council, thank you for this opportunity. I'm honored to be here tonight. Happy to share, happy to convey my perspective as the regional commander and talk a bit about the good work that's happening here in Charleston. I'd like to begin my prepared remarks with a full-throated endorsement for the Charleston district. The winners of the 2021 Charleston Metro Community Impact Award, I might add. I think that's the first time that's been announced, and it's my honor to share that with you all today. But I want to start with an acknowledgement that this city, this state, enjoys the leadership and execution of one of the best districts in the greater United States Army Corps of Engineers enterprise. And I feel uniquely qualified to make that statement. As Mayor Tecklenburg highlighted, having commanded 2 districts and now a division with responsibility for some of Mississippi, some of Tennessee, all of Alabama, Florida, Georgia, South Carolina, North Carolina, the Caribbean, Central and South America, I feel uniquely qualified. I've seen a few districts in action. I'm gonna tell you, this is a good one. But engagements such as these are important in my mind to ensure that we continue to work together to solve some common challenges, especially as we face more powerful coastal storms, growing coastal populations, and property values here in the Southeast. Just a couple days ago, this very city witnessed 8.5-foot tidal waves, closing key transportation arteries and forcing the cancellation of the annual Veterans Day Parade. I want to acknowledge that this city is doing the work. You all have an existing comprehensive flood mitigation plan. What I'm going to talk about tonight, what we're offering is complementary. The scope of the study that I'm going to discuss reduces the risk of coastal storm surge inundation, but it can and should be integrated with what's already underway. I think that's very important that we acknowledge the good work that this city, the leaders that I stand before right now, the good governance. I was able to talk with some of the leaders before we started, and I spoke of my hometown and my ask for good governance. I got excited to come in here tonight to witness local politics in action. It makes a difference. And so as a Fed, if you will, I'm coming here tonight to share some things that we can and should do together. While the 2021 and 2020 Atlantic storm seasons were relatively quiet, there's a lot of work underway. My subordinate commanders responsible for the Gulf states that I previously mentioned continue to rebuild from prior storms, such as Hurricane Michael back in 2018. We've got a lot of work underway at Tyndall Air Force Base in Panama City, Florida, and multiple surrounding communities. But that's after the fact. What I'm talking about tonight is protection. What I'm talking about this evening is so that whatever damage, as we see more frequent storms, more powerful storms, the discussion tonight is about protection. On the coastal storm risk front, in my humble opinion, we're united in our quest to deal with powerful storms, increasing costs that are outpacing our budgets, sea level rise, and a very interested and rightfully vocal public, sometimes in dispute about what should be done next. Misinformation on social media, lengthy processes to get to authorization. We don't make this easy. Funding, planning, design, and construction. I aim to cut a ribbon. We all like ribbon cuttings because when we are cutting ribbons, we're getting done the work necessary to protect this very important community. We in the Army Corps of Engineers are very excited and happy to know that there exists bodies such as this one that are working together to discuss, to address these challenges and find the right mix of federal, state, local, and even private infrastructure in some cases, to implement solutions. My job is implementation. My job is action. I want to press the Charleston district to get to completion, to get to the ribbon cut. Road is long, it's windy, and we're right now in the feasibility phase of it. And that is but the beginning to get to the cutting of the ribbon and the requisite infrastructure to support this community. Within the region that I lead, we're executing several coastal studies and construction efforts funded by supplemental disaster relief bills from 2018 and 2019. My staff is currently balancing an unprecedented workload, $4.4 billion. This workload includes over 20 studies, 2 of which are right here in South Carolina. While this emergency funding was a godsend for many communities who long had authorization but limited hopes for funding, some projects continue to struggle with the timing of the bills. Strict constraints and the host of responsibilities that come with being a federal project partner. As I said, we don't make it easy. Every day, though, my team works to resolve the issues outstanding so that communities in need can take advantage of rare federal funding opportunities. One of these supplemental bills, the Bipartisan Budget Act of 2018, authorized and 100% federally funded the Charleston Peninsula Study. And that's what I'm here to talk about this evening. Another study that my division is leading, the South Atlantic Coastal Study, or SACS, as it's commonly called, was also funded. SACS covers over 60,000 miles of coastline from North Carolina to Mississippi and aims to provide a consistent assessment of coastal risk, identification of locations for future investment, an assessment of risk reduction actions, promotion of coastal resiliency for sea level rise and climate change, and the promotion of sustainable projects. We're doing our best to offer the foundation for future supplemental studies and construction projects in this region. Recently, the Charleston Peninsula Study recommendations were identified as a top-ranked regional design and construction priority for SACS. This is a good thing. SACS recommendations and rankings focus on a project's effectiveness at managing coastal storm risk and are based on the project's benefit to cost ratio, the BCR. So while we appreciate and absolutely enjoy Charleston's extensive history, tremendous beauty, international reputation, was actually a financial measure. The BCR, 10.2 to 1, that led it to being ranked so high. In simple terms, every dollar invested, 10 could be prevented in future damage. I'm going to say that again. For every dollar invested, 10 can be prevented in future damages. Admittedly, I don't get to spend enough time in this wonderful city, but my team tells me historic structures, low income and minority communities, government agencies at all levels, the region's critical medical district, and numerous job centers that feed the economy of the Low Country reside on the peninsula and will benefit from reduced risk. This is a good thing. Specific to the Charleston Peninsula Study, I want to amplify a few points. Impartiality, partnership, community engagement. I want to talk pre-construction engineering and design, or PED, as it's commonly called. Aesthetics, the way ahead, and the strong federal interest for this project. As the study approaches the agency decision milestone and the final stretch toward the chief's report, I want to convey these next steps from the core perspective. I want to discuss where we go, What's next? What are we going to do when the study phase concludes? It's important to call out that we are an impartial party. I want to emphasize the Corps' impartiality, but I also want to make sure that we're sharing our experience and perspective on what can lead to project success, should it be authorized and appropriated. We have a good partnership here in Charleston. It all starts with relationships. And of my 5 districts, the Charleston district is routinely recognized for its focus on and the strength that it routinely and consistently demonstrates in building and maintaining relationships. The strong partnership that they've established with the city of Charleston will continue to be important and should continue throughout the following phases. Community engagement matters. I'm excited to be here tonight because I think I'm also able to bring the transparency that I demand from the district, but also overlay that which is demanded of me from our higher headquarters in DC. And I can tell you Atlanta is involved and full-throated in what we're doing here. I believe in this study. I feel strongly about where we are. I think we're in a good place. But the community engagement that I'm able to watch and witness, we asked for a waiver because of what we are hearing from the community so that we could zoom out and assess and make sure that we get it right. But the community engagement doesn't end with feasibility. It's imperative that as details emerge, details that are not currently being examined during the study phase are examined more closely. Design charrette. Meetings with citizens and stakeholders are a critical part of the pre-construction engineering and design phase. We have to remain arm in arm, shoulder to shoulder. We've got to do this together. I want to call out the fact that there are indeed differences in the feasibility and the pre-construction engineering and design phases. PED, distinctly different from the feasibility phase. In fact, 2 congressionally mandated non-project specific constraints are lifted. The requirement that we get the feasibility study done in 3 years and that we do so for $3 million is tough to do. It forces us to push some things to the pre-construction engineering design, some specificity that we'd all like to see. You just don't get it when you're trying to work within the 3 years and the $3 million. We're not done though. Optimization follows. As a result, PED is project specific and it's completed based on costs and schedule determined during feasibility. For the Peninsula study, this will allow the entire project team to more closely examine issues such as alignment and viewshed features. While the recommended plan that will ultimately be documented in the chief's report will limit the return to some of the decisions that have made, we are going to get boundaries. There are going to be guardrails, if you will. We don't get to revisit everything from the feasibility, but I'm confident that there's sufficient space for us to find common ground and advance what we're doing. There's adjustment that happens during the pre-construction and engineering design phase. I want to convey that we value aesthetics. While the technical performance of the recommended plan is it's the holy grail, it's of the utmost importance. I'm an engineer, right? So I am interested in making sure that what we offer is going to offer the protection that's needed. It can be pretty, but it's got to be good. And that is what our engineers are going to offer. But we recognize and appreciate the community and city's desire regarding aesthetics. It's not lost on me, not lost on the team. And we value the city design efforts, the early efforts that have gone into and the important thinking on design elements that may be appropriate and that can be in many cases incorporated. So I want a foot stomp. When I was teaching Mayor Tecklenburg, you talked about being a math instructor. When I was trying to highlight something that you really needed to know on the quiz, I would foot stomp. I'm foot stomping that PED is an opportunity for us to revisit and do better than what is currently published. And we're going to do that. There are opportunities in the pre-construction engineering design phase. As we move forward, assuming that a signed chief's report and recommendation is transmitted from the administration to Congress, the path forward beyond the study phase requires a federal authorization, a federal appropriation of funds, and continued strong support from the city to ensure that any federal effort is supported. We've got to have local support, hence my desire to come in from Atlanta tonight. It is very important that this body, this community, remain in support of this project. The path to federal funds can be difficult, brings into question oftentimes the value of any further federal investment if you don't have the support of the local community. I want to highlight that this project has strong federal interest. That BCR that I mentioned, we don't normally see benefit cost ratios that high. As I stated, the current BCR of 10.2 is strong. It's strong in general for projects. And to put it in perspective, although the measures are different for navigation projects, the Charleston Harbor Deepening Project, post 45, has a BCR of 6.4. I'll remind you that the BCR for the Charleston Peninsula study is 10.2. This is not just a project for the city, but an investment for the nation. The federal government expects $10 in future prevented coastal storm damages for every dollar invested. Strong federal interest for the Charleston Peninsula study. Mr. Mayor, I hope that I have not exceeded my welcome in taking more time than you all allotted this evening, but I did not want to forfeit the opportunity to call out what I believe as a regional commander are some very important aspects of this study. And I ended with federal interest. I want to convey, you've got it. Oftentimes on studies that I'm working, therein lies the rub, therein lies the problem. We have strong local support, but the federal interest is not there. That is not the situation for the Charleston Peninsula study. So time permitting, I'm happy to field any questions from council members or the community. And if I can't answer it, I certainly have experts here ready to aid and help me make sure the thoroughness of my answer satisfies all. Thank you, sir.
Well, God bless you. Thank you again, General, for being with us. And we will give you a round of applause again, but we will open the floor if anyone has any questions. Councilmember Jackson.
Thank you. Thank you, General Kelly. I've heard nothing but wonderful things about your leadership from people who've, put their own hearts and souls into this project, beginning with Mark Wilbert and now Dale Morris, and obviously the mayor and, Kayla. And so thank you very much for making it clear by coming here, from your headquarters that you are in it to win
Yes,
it
ma'am.
with us. I also want to say that my son-in-law is an engineer, and he would never be able to make the presentation that you just made to us. So you've got some emotional intelligence that you've obviously developed over your career, and I think that pays off for all of your districts and your teams and the end result of your project. So I look forward to going around the bend for PED. I do think that maybe we need to continue to highlight the change of the value ratio between the first draft of the report. As I remember, that came in at a lot higher cost, and it was only a 2.6 ratio of value, 2.6 to 1 that we were going to be able to get, which is not a very convincing story. But now that we've got the highest rating that anyone has ever experienced in doing this in recent history, right? 10.2, I think that it's a no-brainer. So thank you so much. I really appreciate you being here.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you for your comments. And I would love to get your son's name because I'm confident that a member of our regiment, the engineers,
He
he's
owns
got.
one of the best soft serve ice cream stores in West Ashley now. So he's very happy.
Council members, anyone have a question, comment? All right. Hearing none, God bless you and thank you for being with us tonight. We look forward to our continuing partnership.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much. Thank you, members.
Terrific. And thank you to all your team, Colonel and Nancy, everybody. Appreciate y'all.
Absolutely requires supervision, and I was appropriately supervised tonight.
That's right. We welcome you back to Charleston anytime. All right, next we have public hearings, and we only have one tonight, and that's approval of an award for a grant regarding trauma-informed training. And I think since this is a federal grant, it requires, or the nature of the grant requires that we have a public hearing. Would anyone like to be heard on this matter?
Move for approval.
Hearing none, it comes to council. We got a motion to approve and a second. Any discussion? Councilmember Jackson.
Sorry to speak 2 times in a row, but I just want to thank we approved so many of these things that our staff initiated and driven and worked hard. And this one, I think, I've been a little part of the process, not to create the grant or anything, but in terms of the outcome and the use for how we're going to use this training. I think it begins with Dustin Thompson and then our new community outreach leader, Lieutenant Mitchell, and the work that was done by a lot of citizen volunteers surveying the residents of Gadsden Green back to Green a year or so ago, and understanding the needs and the desires and the hopes of the residents of Gadsden Green in particular, as it was being established as a substation. We all knew in the community that that was not the environment that we wanted to support in a community like that, that has had, the impact of disparities over the years, over the decades, over the century. So the Commission on Women are unsung heroes in this. They made a lot of physical support to the kind of community outreach centers that we're now going to see established beyond the substation locations. They've all volunteered for training so that they can learn to be mentors and counselors and friends to people that will come into these outreach centers. Lamsey, our neighbor to the north, the community activist group, had gotten a grant to be able to do the survey, and the Climate Change Coalition volunteers were the ones who literally went around and knocked on doors and talked to the residents. So this is just it's a culmination of a lot of work, and it's not that much money, but it's going to go a long way to bringing, I think, a process and an ongoing system to how we're going to continue to serve and be the force multipliers that we're all talking about for our police force. They can't do it alone. They need to have the kind of services that our community can provide. So thank you, Mayor, for letting me go on about this.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions? All in favor, please say aye. Any
Aye.
opposed? The ayes have it. Next up is our approval of city council minutes just from October 12th.
Move for approval.
Any additions, deletions, subtractions? All in favor, please say aye. Any opposed? The ayes have it. So next up is our citizens participation period. And I'll turn it on over to Madam Clerk to help conduct.
And Mr. Mayor, we have 7 citizens signed up to speak. Did you want to set a time limit?
All right, let's just do 2 minutes each if we will.
All right, 2 minutes.
All right.
Our first speaker is Brian Turner, and he may be online with us. If you could press *6. Brian Turner.
Hi, good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of council. I'm speaking tonight on behalf of the Preservation Society of Charleston.
I'm also proud to serve as our organization's representative on the board of the Charleston Downtown Alliance. So I'm here tonight to urge your support for the adoption of the resolution to advance a business improvement district for King Street, which is on your Ways and Means agenda. The bid would provide an important new source of funding to knit together the historic and cultural fabric of one of the most important retail corridors in the country. It would also help create a more cohesive and consistent management process. Over the years, we've championed many of the great preservation projects that have revitalized King Street. The bid would pay for itself by adding value to businesses and incentivize more investment into revitalization projects. A vote in favor of this resolution, and ultimately the bid itself at your December 7th meeting, is a vote to support cultural programming, beautification efforts, and destination management. Hundreds of other communities around the country offer great models for these improvement districts, including Columbia, which has recently reauthorized its 10-year Main Street program, which began in 2001. Thank you for all of your consideration and for your service to our city.
Thank you, sir.
Next is Donna Daniel.
Hi, Mayor, Council. I'm appalled at the lack of response from City Council to resolve the traffic issue on Burning Tree Road. I hope the losses in the recent election are a sign of a better future representation for James Island. Recently, the Daniel family spent days doing yard work, and the amount of traffic that came by our home was non-stop, 24/7. I experienced it firsthand and was sickened by the unfairness that the council has allowed to happen. Having all neighborhood traffic cut through from one point puts all the burden of traffic on our corner, one corner. City Council should be supporting and sharing all legal and supporting the sharing of all legal entrances and exits. One member of the neighborhood wrote in an email, "What if this was your neighborhood?" Mr. Mayor, it is my neighborhood. And to the audience,
Thank you, ma'am.
the council is breaking a law, state law.
Next is Marcus McDonald, and he may be joining online. If you could press *6. Marcus McDonald.
Hello, Mayor and City of Charleston council members. I'm speaking today to urge you to make a response to a report that was recently released by the People's Budget entailing the gross disparities in policing in Charleston. And we urge, again, for each individual council member to make a statement and also the mayor to make a statement. CPD has already made a statement, but it's imperative that each one of you make a statement because there's Black folks who live in your district who feel like they do not have a voice at this moment. Because if you not see our report, the disparities in youth arrests are staggering. And these are our future we're talking about. 3 people on the council have grandchildren who could probably be affected by this. So this is something that's very serious. We urge y'all to take a stand against this. The youth disparities are as follows. Black youth make up less than 21% of the population in Charleston. However, they make up 77% of all youth arrests. And on top of that, they make up 96.6% of all disorderly conduct arrests in this city. So if we want a future for Black Charleston, we have to do something and address the issues of the police over-policing our youth. Because all these community centers and the audits that have been gone through has shown that it's not worked as well as it could have. So what we need to do is you need to stop reaching out to a lot of the older folks and reach out to the youth. We've been saying a lot of these things and we've been ignored, but we're at the same time, we're the same ones who be getting over-policed as you've seen with this data. So again, I'm going to keep it short, but there's 4 council members in particular who had gross disparities in their district. Those council members are Councilmember Shahid, Seekings, Appel, and Brady. Those are also council members who vote against the Commission on Equity. And there should be something said there. If you're voting against equity, but you have all these disparities in your district, that is a big problem, and y'all need to change it. Thank you.
Thank you,
Tony,
sir.
Tony Daniel.
Good afternoon, council. Been 14 months since my dad's stroke, and I saw the traffic in front of my house. Now, what caused the problem and what my wife was referring to is in the last meeting, Ross, 2 meetings ago, Ross Appel said he didn't cyberbully me. Oh, Ross, you know you did. So I dug up the emails, and while I dug up that email, I found another one from Charles R. in my neighborhood to Ross, Peter, and Mike. Good start. 4/19/2021. 2 streets have been closed for 40 years due to traffic. Ross, everybody says the roads are closed. You're the only one. We have young families walking and playing in the streets like we don't on my street. Nope, they've got them over there, not on our street. And then he finished with, what if this was your neighborhood? And I'd ask you, what if this was your neighbor? How would you like it? You say you want to honor veterans? I was gone. Why don't you just take these guys and go, well, we'll close your streets too while they're not in town. That's effectively what you've done. It is against the law. Title 57, there's a whole list of requirements. You didn't meet any of them, 0, none of them. You cannot close those streets. So which is why Ross Appel says the streets are open. They are not open. They are closed. It is time to enforce the law and open the streets. If the neighborhood wants the streets closed, have them petition city council and do it the right way, not the sneaky way in the middle of the night like they did. And then further, we all know the rules of negligence, don't we, Ross? AO's a duty to be. That duty is breached. There was an injury, and the breach was the actual and proximate cause. You are aware of the danger of cars turning left off of Frampton on Harborview in the rain, in the dark, in the mornings. Yet there you sit with the roads blocked, everybody jammed into one little corner. Are you going to enforce your laws or not? That's all I'm asking. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Mohammed Idris.
Evening, Mayor, City Council. This evening, I would like to give a little insight in what we're about to do in the coming year. The Clear Vision Journal, history is best qualified to reward all research. This is the 11th month and 11th hour for politics among the 12 council persons and the mayor, John Teckenberg, making it 13. We know they say Friday, the 13th, is a bad luck number. My question is why and for who? Next month will be the end of 2021. Then we go into 2022. In 2022, we must be very careful for the catch-22. We here at the Clear Vision Journal will be giving the general public a clear report on our city government that govern the 12th districts of our historical city to see if they are living up to their promises, up to the promises they made during the time when they were campaigning for our vote. We will be doing this so we can give them help in the area they need help in to fulfill their promise. We know the history of this administration, which is an extension of the one that started in 1975 and ended in the year the roof came off of Charleston, which was 2015. And the world was able to see Charleston as she is, a city that shot the first shot that started the Civil War. And the year that the worst storm that hit Charleston in 1,000 years happened. Jesus said the truth will set you free. So we will be telling the general public the truth and nothing but the truth of the action of this city government, council, and mayor. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Doug Warner.
He's left the building.
Emily Quillinen.
Good evening. My name is Emily Quillinen. My daughter Magnolia is crashing this party, rightfully so, because I felt like her toddler time this morning was canceled. We live in Chatham-Moss, just down the road. I'm a stay-at-home mom, and about 15 of us came this Tuesday morning at 10 o'clock, 10:30, to enjoy toddler time, which is a great thing for all of our kids. And we were turned away because what we were told was that the mayor decided he wanted a larger space for this event. And as we can see, they all really needed the whole gym. So I feel like toddler time gives our children, especially mine, who's almost 2 years old, a COVID baby is what you call them, time to socialize, interact, play with other children, other moms and dads. There are toys that maybe other families might not have at their home, and they have an opportunity to come. It's only $2 to come here. So you have all different kind of families, different socioeconomics, race, everyone's here. And that is the true benefit of a rec center and why we come here. And so those are the things, the qualities that I want my child to grow and learn, playing with others, cooperation, teamwork, all of those that they are learning at toddler time. And it's things that those same characteristics and attributes that I think that our city council folks and yourself should also embody and exude. So I feel like it was a little rude and stepped upon, and I don't know who made the ultimate decision to decide that, toddler time, not important. But I would argue very much that toddler time is important. And the skill sets that our children are learning in something like toddler time are what, like I said, we want to see in you guys. So just wanted to make that known.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And I believe toddler time is important too.
Thank you.
We'll make a point when we engage our city council meetings, which we do every year around the city, that we
Let us know.
be a little more respectful of the other programs.
Yeah.
Thank you for bringing that
appreciate
to
that.
our attention.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
And next, I think Christopher Price signed up, but he left.
He left.
And so we also received 2 comments online. One citizen said that council should pass a code of conduct for how council members interacted with citizens, and complained that a road closure on James Island was illegal and non-compliance with state law and created traffic issues where he lived. One citizen referenced comments made at the October 26th council meeting and hoped the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers acknowledged the receipt of the public comment. And those were all the comments that we received.
Great. Thank you. So thank you all for being with us and sharing your comments. We appreciate you coming out. Okay, next up is our petitions and communications. We have 3 folks to get code enforcement appointments. We've got a motion to approve and a second. Any questions, discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it. Next will be a brief update on our city's response to COVID-19. Tracy McKee has a little report and an announcement for us.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. We're bringing up just a few slides. Thanks, guys. So this first chart shows new cases in South Carolina since the pandemic started. You can see cases continue to go down, which is great news. And we see the same in Charleston County cases. That gray dash line actually shows kind of where, I put that on there so you could see we're in a pretty good place as far as where we were at this time last year. If you remember a couple weeks ago, our cases were trending higher than this time last year. So we're still going in the right direction, which is excellent. And we see the same thing happening in Berkeley County. When I was here 2 weeks ago, the level of transmission in Charleston County was still high. That has been downgraded now to substantial. And so Charleston and Berkeley counties are both now substantial levels of transmission per the CDC. So that is going in the right direction too. One thing just to kind of keep an eye on, I mentioned this the last time, we could see an uptick in cases, just like we saw last year. That trend is already happening in the US. You can see this if we look at cases by region. You see the South, our cases are continuing to go down, but if we look at the other regions, those are starting to take a slight uptick. So just something to keep an eye on. A number of studies out right now about vaccinated versus unvaccinated. This data comes from the CDC. The chart comes from the New York Times. This is based off of data coming from 14 states that was sent to the CDC. Basically, the one on the left is showing that cases, you're more like 6 times more likely to contract COVID if you're unvaccinated. And the chart on the right is you're 12 times more likely to die from COVID if you are unvaccinated. And here's just a recent infographic that was released by DHEC that shows the data that they've collected for the state of South Carolina for vaccinated versus unvaccinated. Some really good news. Kids 5 and over can now be vaccinated. So hopefully that's going to play a role in helping us minimize any kind of surge we could see over the winter. But appointments for pediatric vaccination started at MUSC on November 4th. And just a reminder of booster shot eligibility, that may be changing soon, but currently it's still, if you completed your initial series at least 6 months ago, 65 and over, and 18 and over in long-term care settings, have underlying medical conditions, work in high-risk settings, or live in high-risk settings. Just a little note about city operations. Thanks to the great work from led by our emergency management team, almost 56,000 vaccinations have been city assisted. So that's really great work by the city, I think. Also some really good news based off of the data that we're seeing. We anticipate a move back to phase 4, which is our least restrictive phase, on Monday, November 22nd. This is due to kind of the continuing decrease in cases, as well as the high vaccination rate among our employees. Some of the primary changes with that are masks will again be optional for those that are vaccinated, as well as our visitors. And that special events, those COVID plans will now be strongly encouraged. So we won't be doing reviews of those. And if you want to take a more comprehensive list of what those changes are, I've listed the website there on the slide. And I'm happy to provide that to anyone after the meeting if you don't have it already. So summary, cases, the news continues to be good. Cases continue to decrease. We're still considered an area of substantial transmission by the CDC, but that number is actually going down almost daily. Vaccinations are still our best weapon, and you can go to the South Carolina Vax Locator to find a provider. And I'm happy to try to answer any questions y'all might have.
Any questions for Ms. Tracy? Councilmember Shade.
Thank you, Tracy, for that. Where do we stand with our city employees on the compliance? And I know it went into effect, I think, with regards to their options to opt out.
Yeah, so I believe we expect to be 85% vaccination by the mandate deadline. And I believe we are, Mayor might know this a little bit better than I think we're at 5% or under 5%.
We're under 5. We're 96% compliant.
Okay.
There are 55 individuals that we're still working with to be compliant.
Obviously, that changes every day.
Mhm. We have 82% fully vaccinated and about 4% who have one shot. So over 85% have some level. Yep.
You're welcome.
Any other questions? Great. Thank you, Tracy.
you.
And that's good news to be able to move back to phase 4 and to our prior masking protocol, which means at our next city council meeting, unless something changes, we won't require mask in a city facility as long as you have been vaccinated. Okay, great. Next up is our committee reports, and first one up is committee on community development. Councilmember Mitchell.
Yes, Mayor and Council, Community Development Committee met on the 28th at 4:30, and we had 4 items, A, B, C, and D. The first one was presentation of the annual report on homeless action. And the second was presentation on the request for Charleston Redevelopment Corporation, which was deferred. And we had the presentation on housing strategy from the report on race inclusion and racial conciliation. I'm going to let Ms. Gianna Johnson explain to that a little more. But as no action was taken on none of the items here, everything was just for information only. Is Ms. Johnson still available?
She's right. She's right here. Yes.
Oh,
Yes, sir.
okay. I didn't see her back there.
She was
Hiding from me, I
back there
guess.
behind Mr. Summerfield.
Mr. Mayor? Could I
Yep.
just ask that the report name be corrected? It's report on equity, inclusion, and racial conciliation. We can
Okay,
make
equity.
that for the record.
Sure. Correct. But the agenda was written wrong, incorrectly. Thank you.
So briefly, for the reports that were given to the CD Committee of City Council, Councilmember Mitchell, thank you for your leadership and for the members of the City Committee of City Council and their efforts. I will just highlight information from the reports because I believe they were in your packet, specifically related to the City of Charleston Homelessness Outreach Report. We thought it important for you to know and understand what has occurred. We hired Ms. Talia Rice approximately 1 year ago. It was almost a pilot or a test case, if you will. It was our first time hiring an outreach person specifically for the City of Charleston to help mitigate and reach our unsheltered persons in the community. During that year, Talia was able to reach over 300 homeless persons in our community. And basically what she did was attempt to, and is still doing, to build a rapport with those individuals to basically help them transition to a better way of living. What that really means is referring them to the Navigation Center, referring them to 180 Place and to other services in the community that help these individuals. Now, as you all know, there were a few limitations, especially during the pandemic. In particular, 180 was not open to full capacity. If they accepted anyone, they had to have full immunization. And so that presented a problem, as you can imagine, because literally persons who were unsheltered had nowhere to go. And so when you hear about the numbers and you hear about the challenges our Parks Department and others are having when folks hide out in parks or under bridges, it's because they have nowhere to go right now in our city. And so we are working very closely with our faith partners and some other efforts that we are undertaking to help these individuals. I will step back for a moment and tell council that when we started this position, we had asked the Convention and Visitors Bureau to help us with funding 2 positions. They did provide us a check for $10,000 to help with the position. They were unable to fund a full position, so we funded 1 person versus having no positions at all. So the team worked very hard to reach individuals. We are continuing to partner with other nonprofits in the city of Charleston who do this work. As you all know, the property on Cunnington Avenue, in addition to building permanent rental affordable housing, we plan to build what will be a new Navigation Center or Hope Center that we believe will provide the level of services that are required by our homeless persons. But at the end of the day, the resources are what is critical for us advancing the agenda and meeting the needs of this population. And so that's really the summary of this report, and I'm glad to answer any questions, because if not, I'll go to the next.
Any questions about our homelessness efforts?
You're welcome. Thank you.
Yes. We'll proceed.
Sure. And for the next, for the Equity, Inclusion, and Racial Conciliation Report, we specifically reported out on the Housing and Mobility Subcommittee recommendations. And quite honestly, we gave specific attention to those things that related to housing. And I would say to Mayor and Council, many of the things that were included here were also included in our Housing for a Fair Charleston report. So they should seem somewhat familiar to you in that you have heard us discuss these before. But in addition to reporting on those identified goals, we also shared about the progress that has been made to date. And so very quickly, I will share that with you. The recommendations that came from that report was to create new funding sources to support affordable housing, optimize Charleston Housing Authority's rental assistance demonstration, we call it RAD program, and other allowed HUD programs, improve mobility infrastructure, I leave that for Robbie and his team, ensure the low country low line is equitable and inclusive, name the West Ashley Bike and Pedestrian Bridge, improve mixed-use workforce housing fee in lieu, provide support for owners of heirs property, and help families build generational wealth, create a community land bank, establish a fair housing assistance program or FAP, and enact mandatory inclusionary zoning. And so those were the items that were identified from the report. And basically the actions that have been taken to date regarding those goals. We improved the mixed-use workforce housing fee in lieu, and you may recall that came directly to council for approval. We have an escalating fee in there, and the goal being to make sure that we have the development of housing or an increase in the development of housing as it relates to the developers that opt into the mixed-use workforce housing ordinance. Back in May of 2021 is when you approved that tiered escalating fee. And we've in fact had a few, I believe, Robert, developers that have come forth with regard to that. We will continue to evaluate that. We are reporting out to the Planning Commission next week with regard to the MU2. Create a community land bank. We are again addressing this through a consulting process. We are going to look for a consultant to help us facilitate the creation of a land bank. Naturally, a land bank helps us to identify and hold on to properties, because the more we, the city and our partners who facilitate affordable housing can have ownership of land, we can control the outcome of that land. So again, resources are important for all of this, but again, it's important. There's been a GIS tool created by our planning department and some very talented men and women there to help us with looking at land and land opportunities, and then bringing those forward to you all, to the mayor and council, and we will continue to do that as we progress. Establishing a fair housing assistance program, which is a FAP. Amber Johnson and our legal team has worked on an improvement to the fair housing ordinance to ensure its substantial equivalency to the federal fair housing ordinance. And so probably within the next month or so, they will be bringing that back to council for approval. Also seeking assistance from the Department of Housing and Urban Development to determine the level of funding that will be available to FAPs as we move forward. Years ago, we were looking at this as an option. And again, this will provide opportunities relative to fair housing and making sure we are governing ourselves accordingly as it relates to that. And I am almost done. One of the other items I mentioned was optimizing the Charleston Housing Authority's rental assistance demonstration program. The Housing Authority is deeply engaged in this process. They've already submitted the required applications to the Department of Housing and Urban Development. And basically what that does is allow them to bring the ownership of that housing to the Housing Authority, and it literally removes HUD from the equation. That means that the Housing Authority can then seek financing to help improve that housing. They can also provide additional density, and that is where we have been asking the Housing Authority to look very closely at their RAD projects and determine how we can bring additional density to the city of Charleston. We believe this is a prime opportunity to do it. Our planning staff and our design staff, now we're working, I think, on a monthly basis with the Housing Authority, having ongoing meetings to look closely at what they're doing. This is a phased process for them because, like any other process involving the rehabilitation and or construction of housing, there's cost. And so they have a team that they have brought on board, a development director, a housing consultant to help them identify funding sources and look at increases in housing there. And so as much as we can push them on this regard, we are doing that. And that concludes my report, and I'll answer any questions that council might have.
Mr. Mayor, thank you, Ms. Johnson. Mr. Mayor, as you see, and council members, you can see that we are doing a whole lot. Even the Community Development Office, they are doing a whole lot along with the Planning Commission. So in this, in the Community Development Committee, there's a lot of challenges coming, but we are working with it, and we're going to work hard to make sure that some of these things that come forth, and we are working very hard. You can see from what Ms. Johnson is saying to you today that there's a lot of things coming forth, and they're working closely with the Planning Department, even with the Housing Authority. So we're going to see some things in the near future coming forth. Thank you.
Councilmember
Thank you, Ms.
Jackson.
Johnson.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Ms. Johnson. Thank you, Chairman. Just one housekeeping thing. I don't think we did get the two very fulsome reports in our packet. Maybe mine was just missing it, but my packet goes from I to K2. So maybe we could get those as a separate delivery.
Absolutely.
Because this community development meeting, I mean, it was a benefit of riches. And I do think that we need to maybe repeat it or soak into it in terms of all of the ways that the Commission's Housing and Mobility Committee, I mean, if you ever read their report, it was very specific and an action step plan. So I'm really glad that you're putting it all together in a comprehensive document, Ms. Shaw Johnson. I do think that we should continue to challenge ourselves to have a working group of the Community Development Committee, or however that's gonna, take shape, because this is something that we need to continue to get behind. It is probably the most tangible, demonstratable, action-oriented part of the commission's work that we can just take on now. And I don't think we should wait. So thank you very much for enlightening us.
Thank you as well.
Councilmember Saccharin.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Ms. Johnson, for that great report. I just want to say Councilman Gregory is not here, but I will speak for him. I do appreciate all the work that you all been putting in to integrate the recommendations from the commission report. We've met with several other departments, and those departments have been doing the same. So we are advancing many of the recommendations that are in that report, and I just want to give you some kudos. I appreciate it. It's a lot of work, but those recommendations are getting advanced, and we're moving forward with many of those. So thank you.
Councilmember Rappel.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and Ms. Johnson, thank you for that wonderful report. And everything you said and everything that the city is working on is outstanding, and we need to keep doing more of it. But there's a missing piece of this equation that I just want to mention, and that is examining our land use policies and development regulations to make it easier and less expensive to develop housing in the city of Charleston, particularly on the peninsula, particularly in areas near transportation. We don't sit around and have reports and discussions and committee meetings about how to reduce the cost of televisions in the city of Charleston, or how to reduce the cost of other products in our economy. Housing is a product in our economy. We have to find ways to let the market function in a way that drives down costs, improves quality, the way we see in every other sector of our economy. For example, if you're an African-American family living in heirs property on the west side, and you've got a Charleston single that's fallen in disrepair over the generations, you are doomed if you have to go through our City of Charleston BAR processes right now. It's extraordinarily expensive. It's complicated. It's a very difficult process. Okay. It is impossible to build with density in a lot of places. You have to meet all kinds of other requirements. The permitting processes are very complicated. And, these are the things that are preventing our housing market from functioning properly. We have a broken market in this city, and it's not just Charleston, it's all over the country. There's only so much that can be done with programs and city grants and city initiatives. I'm not trying to disparage those efforts. Those are important efforts. They help, but we need to be bringing thousands of affordable units online every year. And the only way we can get that kind of horsepower behind this effort is by getting the private sector involved. So, because right now, if you're a developer, the only way you can make money in the city of Charleston is by selling an upscale premium product. We've got to find ways to make, you got to be able to make money selling Kias. You got to make money selling, I don't even know what kind of brands are in the television market these days, but not everyone is top of the line. We have to find ways to make the economy work in housing. And right now, unfortunately, I think some of the city's policies and practices that have been on the books for a long time stand in the way of a healthy functioning market, make housing more costly, and exacerbate all these problems of housing affordability, gentrification, et cetera, that we're talking about. I was disappointed that none of those recommendations were in the race and equity report. I would encourage us to consider looking at ways we can adjust our policies to make the housing market function better. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? I would like to add a comment that thank you, Gianna, for your report. And I felt it was so instructive, the meeting that we had, Councilmember Mitchell of the Community Development Committee, where we reviewed these recommendations from the Commission on Equity, Inclusion, and Racial Conciliation. And I must say to a single recommendation, or to each recommendation, I believe there was consensus on the committee's part that they were all good ideas and all would be positive strategies to pursue. And I'll bring up one, maybe I remember it because it's the last one you mentioned, was working with the Charleston Housing Authority in their RED program and their planning. So they got their whole inventory of properties that they are embarking upon a long-term plan to either renovate or redevelop. And the opportunity to create more housing really happens with the redevelop part rather than the renovate part. Don't get me wrong. They need to renovate or redevelop. So it was the committee's work over the last year where they really drilled down on that, on the properties of the housing authority that led to specific recommendations about the density of a good part of their property. And it was just about a month ago, after reviewing and getting reports from that committee and from city staff, the group that Gianna mentioned, that Don Cameron called me and he said, Mayor, we've been listening and we've looked at all the blocks of a couple of developments between Median and East Bay Street, and we're going to increase, almost double the amount of our property that we're willing to redevelop and add units as opposed to just renovate. I mean, we're talking about hundreds of units that will be added in affordable product based on the recommendation of this commission and committee. And I just want to make the comment that I know that this council did not have consensus about all the 120 odd recommendations that were made. Of course, they were just recommendations for us to consider. And I just want to say, it was instructive to me that we shouldn't like throw the baby out with the bathwater, that there's lots of good stuff that they worked on over the last year. And yeah, there's some items we'll never get consensus on, and that's fine. But let's go after the ones that we can get consensus on and that can be good for Charleston and good for our city. And frankly, this meeting proved to me that that was the case, that there was a lot of good recommendations in the report that we can continue to pursue. So I just want to make that observation.
Mr. Mayor, and you're right about that. After the report came out, and I spoke with Don Cameron over a period of time, and I was pushing the issue about high density, because at first he was not enthused with that at all.
That's right.
And after the report came out, and I spoke with him because we go back 20 years or more, and I said, look, we need this. This is needed in this community. This is needed in the city of Charleston. And he said, well, Robert, I said, okay, I'm going to consider it. I'm going back to the board. And they went back and they considered that doing that with higher density in that area on America Street, and with the housing that you have, the 275 C Hughes Street, they're going to build a whole more apartments there. It's going to be double what's there now, but they have to replace back what they're going to tear down there. So it's going to be a whole lot of housing that the housing authority is going to do because of this report that came through. So that's why I tell a lot of us, when the council member look at things, look at a vision ahead. We need this, and this is what's happening now. And if we put it out correctly, people will buy into it. And this is what's happening now today. And we will have more housing coming forth. And we as a city, we can probably do a little more by trying to get in with our private sector more and letting them know what we need in the city of Charleston for everyone here to be able to stay on this peninsula or in the city of Charleston to live. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Without further comment, we'll move on to our Committee on Public Safety. Councilmember Shade.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Madam Clerk, members of council. The Public Safety Committee met yesterday afternoon at 3:30. Items A, B, and D deal with one-year grants. The first one was $73,950 for a Charleston Police Department forensic drug identification. Item B was $35,576 for trauma used by CPD. And item D was $55,000 for Charleston Fire Department for collapse and search rescue team. Item C was not a grant, but was an MOU with the U.S. Coast Guard to provide emergency response. The committee met and approved all items A, B, C, and D, and I move that those be adopted.
Second.
And we have a second.
Second.
Second. Any discussion or questions about any of those items? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it. Next up, our Committee on Public Works, Councilmember Waring.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Committee on Public Works met yesterday. All the items you see on your agenda passed unanimously. I'd like to call attention to item 3, B as in boy, Stormwater Management Department updates, in particular King and Hughie. I know Councilmember Mitchell would be very interested in this. This is a project that, we've struggling to pay with TIF dollars and stormwater fees, and CWS is putting almost $2 million into it. And our staff has come up with writing for a grant, a FEMA brick grant, to the total of $9,582,000 in change, as we say, from the federal government. And then obviously we'd have to come up with a city match. It's a 70-30 program, and I can't tell you, I remember several years ago when Councilmember Shealy got on council, he attended his first National League of Cities meeting and came back with the idea of us needing to hire a grant writer. Our staff is doing a wonderful job searching underneath rocks to find additional dollars to leverage the dollars that we have. And this is a great example of it right here. Mr. Fountain isn't here today. But I got to tell you, he and his staff, every time you see these grants coming through, it's not because of us, it's because of that staff that goes above and beyond. This is just a great example. We don't know whether it's going to come through, but I got to tell you, if this comes through, this is going to allow what was initially a $5 million project that we thought would take about $5 million to do. That's now in excess of $10 million, $11 million to do. Should we get this grant, that's going to allow additional drainage projects to take place across this city that ordinarily wouldn't have happened. But we in the game, at least competing for those dollars. So I know you would want to know that. I want to give some kudos to our staff, and certainly Councilmember Shealy with the grant writers and the mayor and the team. We're doing a good job on that. So I just want to say thank you. I move approval for the
Second.
adoption of report.
Any other discussion, questions? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it. Next up is our Committee on Ways and
Move
Means.
for approval as
Second.
adopted.
Councilmember Seekings.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We took up a number of items at Ways and Means today, starting with item 3, bids and purchases, through item 14. All of those were adopted and approved unanimously by the committee. Item number 15 failed. I understand there's a motion as presented to adopt the report, and that is my report.
All right. Any discussion? Any questions? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it. Next is our bills up for second reading. We have 11 of them, I believe, 1 through 11. Is it?
Move for
is it-
approval 1 through 11.
are there
Second.
Any of them that y'all want to take out independently? We'll take them all together then. We got 1 through 11. Any questions, discussion on any of those items? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it. Now for third
So
reading and
moved.
ratification. Any questions? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it. Next, we have 4 bills up for first reading. And I don't know if we want to take those one at a time or together. Oh, number 4 got deferred. I'm sorry. 1
Move
through
for
3.
approval 1 through 3.
We got a motion to approve 1 through 3. Would somebody like to discuss one of them while I sign all these other things I got to sign before the end of the meeting?
Mr. Mayor,
Councilmember Jackson, I
Could
knew
we
I could
cut-
depend on you.
could we possibly have 1 by itself and then 2 and 3 together, please?
Sure. All right, we're
Amend
going to take
motion.
number 1. We have a motion to approve number 1 and a second. Councilmember Jackson.
Uh,
I don't think your mic's working, Councilwoman Jackson.
Property in Cane Hoy is actually owned by Goldfinch LLC that has members, but the property owner on record is Goldfinch LLC.
All right. We have a different ownership. Is that verified by our planning department?
Mr. Mayor, we'll look into that. My understanding was it was these folks, but we'll double check and make sure that it's proper for the public hearing.
Yeah, I heard from these folks, so do please.
Yeah, we'll double check it.
Okay, and this is only first reading, so we'll be happy to correct it for the second reading. Anything else on number 1? All in favor, please say aye. Any opposed? The ayes have it. Now for number 2 and 3. We have a
Second.
motion to approve and a second. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it.
No, nay.
Oh, we have a nay for 2 and 3. Okay. Thank you. And duly noted. I think it's on the agenda, but there's no need, I'm told, for an executive
Move to
session.
adjourn.
So we can, we have I got to sign 2 more things. Give me just a sec. We've got a workshop meeting on our budget next Tuesday. And then 2 weeks from now, of course, we have our next meeting. And we're all signed up. Is there any other business to come before us tonight? Hearing none, we stand adjourned. Thank you all.